If you keep buying all these tools and spending time in the shop, I'm leaving you.
Anyway, today we're going to unbox this Carter Sphere Jig. We're going to set it up and we're going to make a sphere. Let's do it. Recently we did a bunch of charity work, and what we do is we auction off a bunch of turning blanks, and then part of that is if they want me to turn something out of it, they add extra money in there and then I'll turn whatever they want. And this year I have to make 7 spheres. Now I've never even tried to make a sphere before, but I figured if I need to make 7 of them, I'm going to need some help. So I got the Carter Sphere Jig. Let's see how it goes. It's all well packaged. This is not a cheap unit, but it should be worth it. I don't want cheap tools. I want good tools. I'm just going to go over how to put this thing together. We'll get a little familiar with it. This is a cutting bar assembly there. The cutting bar, I'm sliding in there right now. The top of it is notched, so that thing I'm screwing in is going to fit on there and keep it oriented to the right place. We're going to put the fine adjustment knob into the back of the rough adjustment bar until it hits the cutter head, and that's what's going to allow this thing to go in and out just like that. Pretty easy. We need to fix our riser post, our swing arm. These holes do different things. The top one does hollowing. The second hole does 1/2 to 4.5 inches. The third hole does 4 inches to 9.5 inches. And the fourth hole does 9 to 14.5 inches. So you're going to pick whichever hole suits whatever sphere you're going to make. Mine is going to be the second one. We're going to put the locating collar from the hardware kit to the riser post and this 4-layer adjustment. We'll go over all that later. You're just going to put that whole assembly on top of the riser now, and then kind of tighten it down with that thumb screw there, and we'll get ready to put that thing on. This is your mounting plate. It has a scale on it. You have your way spacers underneath. You're going to center that in the center of the ways until the bolts line up with the markings on the side, and you're going to make them the same top and bottom. And then you're just going to tighten them up, and then you're ready to go. Now we just need to put it all together. You get the bolt that'll go through that swing arm. It's the only one that can come close to working, so you're not going to get it messed up. You put your mounting block on it, and then your clamping block underneath that. No big deal. And then it's about time to put this thing on the lathe. This is the exciting part here. We're just going to set this whole assembly between the ways, how we made those bars in there, the exact size. And then we're just going to turn the clamping bar underneath so that it's going to clamp, and you go ahead and tighten it up. And then we got a couple more adjustments and we're almost done. That front hole there takes a locking pin, and it will get you 90 degrees from the workpiece or from the ways. And that's what's going to get you lined up, that locking pin right there. The carbide cutter needs to be with the center line of the lathe. As you can see here, I'm going to line those up as perfectly as I can. And then I get that locking collar we talked about earlier. And that's going to lock that in so that every time you put this on there, it's going to be lined up with the center of your lathe, and then we're set up. This instruction manual comes with a bunch of good tips and tricks, and one of them is don't rough turn with the sphere jig, so go ahead and get it kind of ready. I did that with this blank. I put a dovetail on it. It's going to go right in the chuck, so I don't have to mess around. You need to make sure that your blank can even make a sphere, and I mean by the, you're going to measure that distance from top to bottom, which is 4 inches on this one, and then you're going to measure on the top side of it, 2 inches on one side and 2 inches on the other. You need to make sure that you have enough material to even make a circle to begin with, if that makes any sense. Now we almost have this set up. We have the locking pin in there. So you take the locking pin out. The cutter head is pointed right at that red line. So we know all that is centered. Now we need to back that off so we can get the corners cut. And we're going to run into a little bit of trouble. We need to pull it back just a little bit further. We're going to take the supplied Allen wrench and go to the rough adjustment nut on top there, and we can move the whole assembly back. And now we're going to tighten it back up, and now we'll be able to get just the edges. And you can do this with any type of circle. Just that's part of the adjustment. You get it close with that one, and then you can micro adjust with the micro adjust knob. You're going to adjust it to where you're just barely missing on both sides, just like this. And then it's time to go. I was pretty excited to start cutting. You just kind of go into it real slow, and you kind of get a feel for it after a while, but you just cut the corners off and go nice. Unloosen that, run your micro adjust in and tighten it back up, and you can go again. Woo! And I'm totally not used to not having negative rake. This is pretty chippy. And later on, I go a little bit faster and it gets better. And they have some tips and tricks in the instruction manual that help out a little bit too. But just getting through these first couple cuts made me feel a lot better about this thing. There are a couple things that I learned pretty quick. One of them is this cutter likes to cut left to right. So right now I'm finishing a cut. I'm going to go all the way back over to the left and then adjust it in and make the cut all the way from the left to the right. And the other thing is, if you apply just a little bit of pressure to the swing arm while you're going into the cut, then it seems to hold it a lot better and you get a lot less vibration and chip out. So pretty quickly I learned that. You're just going to repeat this process slowly. And I say slowly, I really don't think it takes that long to do this. When you're doing it and you're going just a little bit at a time, you're kind of thinking it's going to take all day to do this. But next thing you know, you're going to look up and this thing is ready to take the support off and go ahead and round the one side, just like this. I just removed the support and went all the way to the left, adjusted in, and continue making the sphere until that red line in the middle disappeared and the part that I had supported became round. And then we just go to the next step, which is probably the hardest step. There's probably many ways to do this, but I chose to do it this way. I just tilted the cutter head a little bit, and then I went over there just to smooth off that nubbin on the end. I'm going to call it a nubbin. Let me know in the comments what you call it, but I'm going to go ahead and smooth that off a little bit so when I put it between centers, I can go ahead and turn it without fear of it catching. So let me know what you do. I just cut off the sphere from the lathe and keep into account the curvature of the sphere to make sure you didn't cut off too much or make sure you have enough material to make a sphere. Here's a live setter kit from Carter. It's a pretty cool deal. These things are an extra expense. They're not cheap, but they are pretty cool. Just like everything else, they have urethane protective cups on them, so you're not going to tear up your sphere. It's super cool. I'm glad I got them. It helped with this process a lot. So just get it in there and tighten it down, and you're ready to start cutting that nubbin off. We removed our chuck, and now we need to measure this so we can recenter our jig. I have this tape measure here. There's probably lots of ways to measure this, but I chose this one to see how many comments I'll get in the comments section about how I did this. And I'm not sure it's the most accurate, but it kind of worked. It was kind of not perfect either. First thing we're going to do is back our carbide tip out because that nubbin sticks out further than what we had it against the sphere. So we need to get it out of the way. And then we adjust our jig to where the tip hits the red mark we just put on there with our fancy measuring device. And now we just start turning again. See how it goes. For me, this was the scariest part of the whole thing. But once I got the cutter to touch the material and I knew it wasn't going to fly across the shop, I became a lot more at ease and I just went real slow and started cutting this nubbin off and just go slow, be patient, and then you got to see if both sides of the nubbin are equal. And then when you get down far enough, you need to make a decision. Do you want to keep cutting or do you want to start sanding? I'm pretty happy on how I measured the center line on this thing, but it wasn't exactly perfect. I needed to start sanding sooner than I would have liked. Here in just a second, I'm going to show you how cool this thing turned out. But I do have 7 of these to make, and if you're interested in this, I'm going to learn and then tell you all the tips and tricks that I find along the way. So you might as well subscribe if you like this and stick around for some more. I'm definitely going to have a video on how to sand and polish these things to a glass finish. And now let's check out how cool this thing turned out. And once again, come back and see us. This thing turned out fantastic. It is pretty cool. I'm pretty happy for my first sphere. I have about 6 or 8 of these to do, so go ahead and subscribe and check out how I do these. The more I learn, the more I'm going to share with you. So come and see us. I did do a video on how to sand and polish resin to a glass finish. I'll put it over here. So go see me on that video and then come and see us when I make some more of these.